All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Today, we are doing a brand new episode of Give It to the People Live. And every time I get the opportunity to interview some amazing people that are doing some great things in the community. And so, what we do with this particular live stream slash podcast is we focus on BIPOC businesses. Now, our company, Give It to the People, is a mental wealth organization that focuses on getting your mind right and your money right. And so, with that, we know that business ownership is definitely one of the things that will get your money right. So, we interview all different kinds of people from all over. And today we get to interview somebody that is right in alignment with exactly what we talk about when we're talking about health, wealth, and just being a great person on a regular basis. So, I want to bring on Cynthia. And Cynthia, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am wonderful. So, Cynthia, can you tell them about your organization? Just give them a little bit of background on you.
Yes, so I'm the founder and the CEO for Be Natural Music Therapy and Wellness. And so we're an organization that focuses on um, wellness of people in the community. We try to offer like holistic, realistic, simple strategies for mental health because you already know that is an indicator of physical health. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in the marginalized population, mental health does not have a priority. So, we're here to advocate, educate, and support the community in its empowerment of their mental health.
Now, do you think, and I know I have plenty of questions to ask you, but just based off of what you said, generational trauma could be one of the reasons why people don't focus as much on mental health. Because, back in the day, it was just suck it up, or, they would use the term be a man, or, that's a different type of person's disease, right? And people sometimes just really didn't believe in mental health as, they knew that there were problems, but maybe they wouldn't necessarily use the phrase mental health because it wasn't really a phrase that was really used then. So, how do we kind of combat that to get people that are in these marginalized communities to even pay attention to it and make it a priority?
And that's where I think the educational component comes in, is in educating the community of what mental health really is and the effects of poor mental health on your physical health. And generational um, mental illness is one of the major factors. And also, another major factor is the barriers, because there's a stigma still associated with mental health or mental illness, as you would hear it said. And so most people are like, no, I don't want to, you know, admit I have a mental health struggle, because then maybe I'll lose my job, or people
Mm-hmm.
will look at me a certain way, or people will treat me different, or I'll have less access to health care. So there are a lot of barriers, as well as lack of information and education that are associated with it.
Yeah. And I mean, when we talk about that, I mean, that can be something just stressful in itself. Just feeling like you can't tell somebody that you have a problem because maybe you'll be labeled a certain way, or, and I really wasn't even thinking about the fact of like losing a job, because a lot of times if you are diagnosed nowadays, what happens is people want to prescribe you medicine,
Right,
right? And then
right,
that medicine may not necessarily be the best thing because it can limit motor function.
right, right,
So it's kind of putting you in a situation where, well, can I even afford to
right,
have a mental illness, right? And
right.
sometimes
Yeah,
we don't have the luxury to be able to afford to be mentally ill. So we'll kind of subvert it and just push it down until one day then something crazy happens, or one day we just finally blow up and admit, okay, I really do have a problem. So
right.
I appreciate the work that you are doing in that area, because I think it's maybe not enough focus on the marginalized community when it comes to just being able to admit that you do have a problem.
Right, right. And
Now,
I
do you
think that,
go
uh-huh.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I was going to say, and I think that people also aren't aware that with the marginalized population, as the level of poverty increases, the
Mhm.
level of mental illness increases as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a direct correlation between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you think about this, because I always like to think about it specifically, and I focus, I like to use the word black. I've never really been comfortable with the term African American.
Right.
Just, like if I could go back and be like, Jesse Jackson, what made you use that? Like,
Right.
I blame Jesse for it. I'm just going to be honest, right? And I've
Okay.
met Jesse Jackson in person, but it was inappropriate for me to ask him that
Oh.
question at that time, so I didn't ask. But it's kind of one of those things where I just feel like there's so much more power in the word black, right? So do you think that, or have you encountered even in your practice that more men are actually coming to you now or embracing the understanding that they do have an issue and that there is something that does need to be, not necessarily fixed, but at least paid attention to? Are you seeing more black men come to you?
It is on the rise. It's
Okay.
not what it needs to be, but it is increasing. And I think there are several reasons. Is because culturally,
Mhm.
having a mental illness is a problem in terms of being black.
Yeah.
But in terms of gender, men are like they consider themselves like the stronger sex. I can suck it up, I can do anything, I'm in control. So to admit you have a mental health struggle denies that control. It
Oh,
makes you weak. And so there's a lot of internal struggle associated with admitting you have a mental health struggle as a man. But I think there are several things on the horizon that are making it okay. The news is starting to, really focus a little more on mental health. And then
mhm.
you've got like the Confess Project, which is the barbershop project, which, they use that as a platform for mental health awareness.
Okay.
So there are some things happening, but men are definitely still behind in terms of admission. So that means they're behind in terms of seeking help.
Yeah. And I didn't even know anything about, you said it was called Confession, the
The
barbershop.
Confess Project,
Confess.
right, which is that the Confess Project of America,
Okay.
which they I think they're based out of Atlanta. And what it is they go into the different barbershops and they do this in-depth mental health training with the barbers. And because, your average black man will have a conversation with the barber and tell him his life
Definitely.
story, whereas he won't even go to the therapist, right?
Yeah.
And so that just becomes a platform for them to share some of their struggles. And if you train those barbers, then they're able to actually, head them toward the correct resources or offer support that they need to get help. So there are a couple of things going on. And, there's never enough,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
the issue. But there are some things on the horizon that hopefully men are starting to become more comfortable with having a mental health struggle.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad you told me about that because I'm definitely going to do some more research into that. And then, just from your perspective, why do you feel like your mental health first aid can improve the mental and physical health outcomes of the marginalized population? Because you did mention that it's not just the mental, but it's also the physical. So, how do you feel like this can be helpful?
Well, because when you talk about mental health, not just mental illness, but mental health, that's that has to do with your strength, your spirituality, your emotional, your physical wellness. And so what happens is when you struggle with mental health, you are less likely to take care of yourself physically,
Mhm.
exercise and things that affect your health, right?
Yeah.
You're less likely to get the sleep you need, which affects decision making and affects your health, right? You are less likely to eat right, in other words, eat healthy foods. So you eat foods that affect your physical health as well, because a lot of the foods that help when you are stressed are things that are not healthy,
Yeah.
right? Are
Yeah.
the chips and the chocolate chip cookies,
And if you're
right?
an emotional eater, then that could be even worse because you're eating the things that make you feel better at that time,
Right.
and that may not be healthy. Yeah.
Right. So you combine all of those things and you are not seeking out any self care to mitigate the effects of all the ongoing stress. Then what happens is your body stays in that fight or flight mode
Yeah.
um, on a routine basis, which means it's going to overall end up with your blood pressure increased and then your heart disease, is at a higher risk, and stroke is at a higher risk, hypertension, you're at risk. And the reality is, we're already at risk for those things culturally.
Mm-hmm. So
And
then
so,
add on us having the
right,
stress.
Right, right.
what's in our DNA, and then it's like, it's a great equation for us to not have the best mental health and physical health.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the case, right? And so we also tend to use non-healthy coping strategies like
Uh-huh.
alcohol, right?
Okay.
Which is just something else that affects your physical health in terms of your kidneys, your liver. So
Mhm.
that affects your physical health as well. And
Mhm.
so you look at those risk factors, and then you look at those risky behaviors, and they actually have a lot of studies out there showing the direct correlation between early death and those factors.
Oh, wow.
So mental health is not just about mental illness.
Yeah. And so with your organization, what are the three main initiatives that you are really trying to enforce and just impress upon people?
So we have three. The first one is mental health first aid training that we offer into the different communities free. So in our area, we're trying to do a lot of it in person just because of, we don't want lack of, say, computer access or lack of internet access to be a barrier.
Hmm.
And so we're offering a lot of the classes free.
Okay.
We partner with different organizations to, provide the resources that they need in terms of the workbooks and stuff.
Hmm.
We also do it virtual as well, but just understanding what it is, what mental illness is, what it looks like.
Hmm.
That means you're able to identify, respond, and you're able to point somebody to the correct resources to get help
Okay.
early on before somebody's in crisis. That's a big one. That's that educational component.
Hmm.
And then our second component has to do with the wellness center. So we do stress management in terms of mindfulness, relaxation, Tai Chi and Qigong, right?
Hmm.
Which actually do things like lower the blood pressure, um, improve your ability to handle stress, help regulate your emotions,
Hmm.
and that's the second one. But our third initiative is going to be the Center for Self Expression, where we actually give you a platform for expressing the different emotions and feelings, whether it's grief, trauma, whatever you encounter,
Hmm.
so that you're able to externalize that and not internalize that,
Hmm.
increasing your stress and your effects of stress. So we'll do songwriting, we do movement, we do slam poetry. So
Hmm.
you're able to actually learn healthy self-expression, which is healthy coping skills.
Oh, I love that. Now, with
Yep.
this, because we didn't mention it, but you are in Texas. So
Oh
when you
yeah.
said come in person, she meant in Texas, y'all. I just need to make that because
Right, right, right. She's
a lot
Texas.
a lot of times they'll think, okay, well, they may know, well, Chisa's in North Carolina, right? And so I don't want you to just think she's right around the corner, okay? Because let me tell you, I have driven to Texas twice, and it's 17 hours, okay? So I know how long it takes from North Carolina to get
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
but you can just hop on a plane and then you can get there much quicker.
Yeah.
But I wanted people to know that for the in-person portion. But if a
Yeah.
person is interested, you do said that you can do it virtually as well,
Yes.
teach
Mhm.
them these skills too. So
Right.
that was
And
first.
those skills also come with an actual 3-year certification.
Oh,
Those
wow.
are some very in-depth skills.
Okay.
Um, and so we can actually teach it nationally.
Okay.
And we're also in those initiatives with the stress management and the Tai Chi. We're starting an online program so that people that aren't close or don't have the ability to get to where we are
Yeah.
physically can still, take advantage of it because it's any age, any level of ability
Yeah.
you can engage in the Tai Chi and the Qigong. So we're launching that in
Okay.
January. So it'll be online as well. So all they have to do, and if they're not able to make the actual live classes, we'll have our video library so that they can do it. They can just access it video.
Yeah.
We're
Now, you mentioned that the first service was free. Are all of the services free, or is there a cost for certification, or for any of the Tai Chi or anything? Is there a cost associated with any of that?
So the mental health first aid,
Mhm.
we're making sure we are always partnering with someone that can provide the resources in terms of the workbooks, and
Mhm.
we partner with the libraries, et cetera, so that they don't have to pay for those courses.
Okay.
So we're making sure we're always partnering so that it is free to the community.
Okay.
We do it in businesses as well, but then
Okay.
of course with businesses, we're able to charge.
Yeah.
That offsets the cost of doing it free in the community. So
Okay.
those classes are free.
Okay. Okay.
And in terms of the Tai Chi and the Qigong, we offer those. It's the same concept. We
Mhm.
offer those free in the community and free online
Okay.
because we actually have partnerships with businesses that offset the cost of those as well,
Okay.
and
Okay.
the other initiative.
Okay. And so, from our perspective, being able to support your business, if there was a business who is interested in, helping with these services, then they can just reach out to you directly.
Oh, most definitely, most
Okay.
definitely. Because
Okay.
that's how we are able to impact that community. We realize that lack of funding is a barrier to
Mhm.
most of the people in the community. So
Mhm.
if we can make it free to the community members,
Yeah.
then they're more likely to access it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now this one thing I'm going to say this. I just finished up, talking with a lady who focuses on lending, right? Lending to small businesses.
Right.
And me, my mentor, we've said this a lot of times, is that sometimes people don't feel the value when things are free.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to hit them in the head with a charge. Like you need
Right.
to charge them, because then it's like, oh, I feel like, and I think that this resource that you are offering,
Yeah.
it just sounds like amazing. And I think a lot of times
Yeah.
somebody, I'm not going to say any names, right? But would take the concept and then charge $1,000 a person, right? But I think that, being able to make it accessible,
Yeah.
do you see that, because even when you talk about the Tai Chi and the Qigong and you're saying what it can do for you,
Right.
do you see that some people don't still understand the value and what that could bring to their life? So can you trying to give us a little bit? I know you talked just a little bit about blood pressure,
Yeah.
and that, but the value of being able to learn those skills is something that's going to keep on going, right? So
Right.
if a person's like, well, look, even if it's free, why should I come? Can you kind of give us a little bit of that?
Right. And so for us, it free is a potential barrier because people don't necessarily see the value.
Mhm.
But if you charge and it's a totally new concept, then you don't even get an opportunity
Mhm.
to educate the people because they totally discounted from the beginning, going, okay, it costs money and I'm not. So
Mhm.
that is a challenge for us, figuring out that sweet spot,
Yeah.
right? However, we always tell people just try it for 5 minutes, right?
Oh,
It's
okay.
very simple. So and that's how we get our biggest advocates. So we're like, let's do 5 minutes. You'll
Mhm.
feel physically, you'll feel the difference. You'll
Mhm.
feel calm, relaxed, grounded, centered, emotionally peaceful. And you're like, oh, that's what this is, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
always the response we get. And
Yeah.
so once somebody just tries it for a few minutes, they're like, oh, it doesn't take trying it 15 times for you to get, some response. Like, no, give me 5 minutes. Like, just
Mhm.
give me five. And I assure you, you will feel different.
Yeah.
And then you will want to seek out the services. Because then the next question becomes, where are they offering this? Where can I do this?
Mhm. And
Right.
how often is it? Because I
Right.
might need
Like,
more
I
recommendations.
see the
Now,
value.
how frequently do you offer the classes though? Because that would be another question. Like, so we know that they can come get them, but how frequently? Like, is it a weekly thing? Is it a bi-weekly? Like, how often do the classes happen?
So at this point, we're still been doing them at different community events, which is
Mhm.
usually about once a month.
Okay.
And we also will do sometimes Tai Chi in the park.
Ooh.
We'll have a local park. Of course, Texas weather has not been very forgiving lately,
Mhm.
right? But we'll just pick it up. We're like, okay, we're doing Tai Chi in the park for the next hour. Just come meet us out here.
Mhm.
And so we're doing it that way right now. But we are looking at some sites that we can offer it every week
Mhm.
in the different community. So in 23, that's like on the top of our to-do list is to
Mhm.
make sure we have several secure sites that we can offer the training. So
I
we
love.
are in talks with a couple of facilities,
Uh-huh.
but we're trying to just make sure we've got it out there so people know what it is for them
Yes.
to come, because
Yes.
it's worthless for us to have a site and have all of this planned and nobody shows.
And that makes a difference. I mean, and that's one of the things is the marketing of it, And so when we do a show like this, that is the purpose for more people to
Yeah,
know about it. Like
yeah,
my best friend lives in Texas, which is why I was out there in the first place. Just trying to come out. But there's so many vibrant Black businesses that are out there as well. And I think that if we just kind of let people know this
Yeah.
exists, then
Yeah.
you'd be surprised at how many people will be like, oh my God, I would love to partner with them. I would love to have
Yeah.
them come here. Because the thing is that once people know,
Yeah.
then the responsibility and the onus is on them to
Right.
then follow up and make sure that this way they can continue to see the success of your business and see it grow. And
Right.
what you're offering to me is like a no-brainer. Like, who doesn't need to be calm? And that was
Yeah.
my word of the year for 2022.
Or
So
yeah.
I usually, by now, I've usually gotten my word for what the next year is going to be, but God has not talked to me about what that is yet. But for 2022, it was calm. And when I'm telling you, breathing exercises. And I wish I would have, I wish I would have been in Texas so I could have took a little Tai Chi, right? But that would have been something that I would say, yes, I want to put into my life. But even with doing it online, I can definitely see something where, even here at my studio, I will turn this TV on and watch it online and be a part of it, and I could see it being something that, would definitely help people grow. Now, when we talk about business owners,
Right.
business owners, to me, are some of the most stressed people.
Yes.
Whether it's an internal, an external, a combination, it just is in their mind. It always seems like you can never get enough done. And so it kind of comes to a thing where sometimes I don't think business owners realize they're stressed until they get sick, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's what you said, it manifests itself in there.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this, what was your reason for even starting this business in the first place? Because I'm imagining that something must have happened to make you say, I'm going to make sure that this is something that I do as a business. So
Yeah.
what made you take this on as a business?
So there were two things. One, I actually was working in hospice, and it was a very emotionally draining
Yeah,
job. And I found out I didn't have the skills in terms of managing stress.
I don't.
And so I started having blood pressure issues, which I had not had a history.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 medications and FMLA, just the gamut. My doctor was finally, okay, it's time to let this go and figure this out. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I would go do my hospice, I found a site that was always doing Tai Chi. And I thought, I'm going to take my lunch and try this. Right.
Okay.
And I started doing it every week. I would go over there and do what I needed to do, but I would always make sure I could do the class. And I could tell the difference. And so once I actually had to leave, I still had the same problems with blood pressure. So I reached out and searched out someone that was a Tai Chi master and a qigong master and was like, okay, can you teach me this? Let me learn what I need to learn to see
Yeah.
what this does. And I found out after a few months, my blood pressure stayed down and I was off all 5 medications.
Come on.
And the only time my blood pressure starts to get willy-nilly is when I get busy and don't do it. So you will
That's
see
amazing.
you will see me in my yard doing qigong early in the morning.
Yes.
A lot of times, because that's the thing that lowers my blood pressure. That's the thing that grounds me. And then the other thing is working in mental health. I did inpatient and residential treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would do Tai Chi or Qigong with the patients, they were like, oh my God, this is the best I felt. I feel so calm, like my anxiety's under control. Where do I get this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see these
So you
same
like,
people.
let me put it in a little package for you.
I know, right? But month after month, they would keep coming back. And they were like, if I could do this at home, I could stay out of here. And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's doing it for our population. It's out there, but it's just not doing it for the underserved population, I will call it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's not that we haven't known about this. Like, for me, growing up late 70s, 80s, right? In that time frame, that was like the highlight of all of the Kung Fu movies, right?
Right.
So you would see it, David Carradine out there, doing his thing. Okay.
Right.
I got to throw names out there because it tell me how old you are. Like, if you don't know the names, I know you know. So, watching that coming up, my uncle used to watch those little Kung Fu flicks and stuff. And I always thought it was so pretty, right? Like, not when the women were in it, they would have some scenes with the flowers and this and that. But I always thought it was just such a beautiful art form in itself. You want to protect yourself and you want to fight the bad guys, but at the same time, that whole Bruce Lee of just being calm and being like water, right? And being able to just let stuff roll off. And it's just like, I don't think that there's as much emphasis now, even in martial arts today, right? Because what's taken its place has been like MMA kind of stuff, where it's
Right.
way more brutal. But the art form and just the part of it where it
Yeah.
is good for your body, I
Yeah.
don't think that people are paying as much attention to that. And that, as a mainstream, let
Yeah.
alone is it more of a thing where, Black people specifically are paying attention to it. And I
Yeah.
think that, even when you talk about in a musical sense, Wu-Tang Clan made people pay attention to the Asian art form, right?
Right. Right.
And so you kind of get a vibe and a feeling there, but at the same time,
Yeah.
you don't really see people doing it as much. Like I think now you see a lot more meditations and affirmations, which I love to
Yeah.
do all of those.
Yeah.
But you've given me something that says, you know what, that might be the thing. Like if a person is not interested in going to like work out on a treadmill, but
Yeah.
maybe they could take that energy and they could do
Yeah.
the qigong. Say it one more time for me so I don't pronounce it right.
The
I want to pronounce it wrong.
qigong.
Chi, okay, yes, because it
Qigong
starts
and
with
Tai
Q,
Chi.
so my mind always goes to Q. So qigong and the Tai Chi,
Yeah.
that may be something. Now, if a person
Mhm.
is disabled,
Right.
like because we want to do some things that are ADA compliant too,
Uh-huh.
and maybe they don't have the legs or an arm or something,
Yeah.
like if they have a disability or maybe they're in a bed kind of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
going with that route because you mentioned hospice.
Yeah.
Is it something that they can still do part of it and
Yes.
still kind of get the effects of it too?
Yes.
Okay.
It most definitely is, and that gives us the advantage of some of the other forms of meditation,
Mhm.
moving meditation, because we actually have worked with people with autism, with MS, with
Mhm.
cancer, and physical disabilities, in wheelchairs.
Yep.
And so the movements are very gentle, very flowing, and there's modifications if there's a part of the body that you cannot utilize.
Uh-huh.
And a big part of it has to do with the movement, it has to do with the breathing, it has to do with the focus. And so it's very accessible to
Mhm.
that group. And
Yeah.
so that's a draw to it. Like, oh, I can be in a wheelchair and I can still benefit. Yes.
And a lot of times people, and I'm also thinking about, people that may have veterans or
Mhm.
PTSD or, anybody that's in an afflicted situation. And,
Yeah.
and it could be something that is physical. It could be something that is mental. Right. So I'm just thinking of like all of the people that something like this
Yeah.
could help, because, with me focusing on business, you encounter so many different people from different walks of
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
unless they tell you that they have a certain problem,
Yeah.
a lot of times you can't see it,
Right.
and but you
Right.
can kind of tell maybe in conversation that a person has
Yeah.
done some things. And it's like, what
Yeah.
if you could coalesce all of these people together and
Yeah.
get them to do something like this where they would then have a different skill set? And I think that when we kind of look at self-efficacy of being able to calm ourselves down and
Yes.
being able to, I mean, just think about all the applications. It's like domestic violence, like
Yeah.
it's so much
Yeah.
that it's about you as an individual kind of
Yes.
taking your power and
Yeah.
putting it in a way that you can then help your mental and your physical health.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is, and so I've worked with veterans before,
Hmm.
um, and so I've also worked with PTSD and worked with teenagers,
Hmm.
and so panic attacks, anxiety, all of that comes into play in terms of being able to be an effective coping strategy to
Hmm.
mitigate those the effects of those traumatic events or the effects of those stressors. And
Hmm.
so there's not a population that I have found that cannot benefit, even if it's just someone that can only do the breathing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not a population that I have found. And so it becomes a form of empowerment for that person to know, oh, I can regulate my own emotions. Like I don't need medicine to do it. There's a place for medication. I would not
Hmm.
at all, deny that. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of times, on the freeway, you don't have access to pull over and, necessarily to be sitting in rush hour traffic doing a meditation with your eyes closed. You
Yeah.
can't, right? So there's a lot of times there's places that you can engage qigong breathing or basic movement, that it can be anywhere.
Hmm.
You can be in the bathroom at work in a
Hmm.
meltdown and just go sit in the stall for 2 minutes and do it. and
Mhm.
come out feeling more grounded and calm because you've learned that emotional self-regulation from that Tai Chi.
Mhm.
So the applications are just innumerable. And so
Mhm.
that's why we're so excited and so determined that the underserved population has access to the knowledge and
Mhm.
has access to the physical resource and has opportunity.
Mhm. Well, you have sparked my whole entire interest. And if you knew, I'm telling you, I tell people all the time, and this is why I like having my own little show, because I can say what I want, right?
Okay.
A lot of times in certain places you can't necessarily express, religious type beliefs, anything like that. So I always say my God, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
know about anybody else's God, but the way my God works in my life, he continues to put things in perspective
Yeah.
and put people in my path
Right.
that allow me to continue to expand my own knowledge and my own desire to learn more
Right.
and to do more, right? And
Right.
my husband and I were having this conversation about our what we want to do, what do we want to bring into this world into next year with our idea of mental wealth, right? And I was just telling him, okay, well, we could do this, we could do that, but I really feel like there needs to be a place for the physical to happen,
Yeah.
and because I focus so much personally on the mental side of things,
Yeah.
sometimes you do leave the physical side of things,
Right.
it's okay, you're going to be all right. But I
Yeah.
think that this has probably just
Yeah.
encouraged me
Yeah.
to focus a little bit more on that. And I'm very excited for your classes to come out. So
Yeah.
tell people where they can find you because I'm inspired.
Okay. So on the we have a website, benaturalwellness.org. So it's BeNaturalWellness.org. And so on our website, usually on the first page, we also have a listing of all upcoming events.
Oh, okay.
Um, so we try to keep that updated. As I say that, when we hang up, I need to go update it, right?
But it at least see
Um,
that reminded you. That's right.
right,
Yeah.
right. But we're also on Instagram. You'll find us there on benaturalwellness.org or Be Natural Wellness. We're on Facebook,
Mhm.
and we're on Facebook, Be Natural Music Therapy, because the
Okay.
Be Natural Wellness was taken,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It happens.
and so instead of being on every platform, we wanted to find several platforms that were impactful, but that we could do well. So
Mhm.
there's a couple of platforms that we're not on, but
Mhm.
that's intentional.
But you know what? And that's knowing where you need to be and where you don't is definitely a business strategy. And I
Yeah,
think sometimes we can be all over the place. So you
yeah,
saying these are the places that we know we could affect people is
yeah,
definitely something that makes a difference. So I hope somebody that's listening takes that
yeah,
as a little gem, a
yeah.
little piece of knowledge as well. So I want to thank you, Cynthia, so much for being on, for just enlightening us about, what you're doing. And then we know we can go on the website so we can find out future events,
Yeah.
and then we'll definitely be on the lookout for when you do have the classes too, because in this way we can do things virtually, so that'll be amazing.
Yeah. So I am so glad that you extended the invitation. I am always excited about sharing something that we're doing that we think can help the community because
Mhm.
we believe in empowering the community to help themselves.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's exactly what people have to understand. So we give you the knowledge, but you still have to go and put the
Right.
action to it.
Right.
So now you have it. So now you can go forth and what I like to call multiply, now that you know what's going on. All right. Well,
Right.
Cynthia, thank you so much for being on today. And everybody with Give It to the People, if you are watching this on the replay, make sure that you share it. You can still leave comments. If you find that you want to support, then go benaturalwellness.org and feel free to support them. And I don't know if you have a donation button on the site, but put a donation button on the site. Okay, that's what I was like. Put a
I
donation
do.
button there. Somebody might want to bless you.
Right.
And
A
then
tax deductible donation.
there you go. So this way, you can, and it's almost the end of the year too. So that means
Right.
somebody didn't donate on Giving Tuesday. So go ahead and donate now. And then
Right.
this way you can get that tax deduction before the end of the year is out.
Right.
And if you're watching this and it's the new year, then you already know where you can go find information. So
Yeah.
make sure that you guys always show up and show out and that you continue to give it to the people. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Miss Chisa.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.